Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first session of our SEO webinar mini-series. My name is Lexi, and I'm just going to be your eyes and ears behind the scenes on Zoom, helping to control this panel of lovely ladies. But I did just want to remind everyone today is day one of day three of our three-day series. After our ever so popular webinar in May, which was more generic SEO and WordPress, we decided to host this webinar mini series. And today kicks it off on specialized SEO markets, such as international and e-commerce. From there, tomorrow, we'll see you at 12 o'clock Central Time to talk about practical SEO applications. And then we'll end the week on Thursday on technical SEO. All of this is being recorded, as well as we will post the transcript and any resources or items mentioned in the webinar we'll post there. Everything is available to you on wpengine.com/resources, as well as the May webinar. So if you miss anything or want to go back and listen, please join in there. Again, that is wpengine.com/resources. You can also register for part 2 and part 3. Today, we are going to go through introductions of this lovely panel, talk a little bit about what SEO is, and then Erin, who is our resident SEO expert at WP Engine, is going to take the panel through some amazing questions. So with that being said, Erin, I'm going to kick it over to you. Just want to give a big shout out to this huge panel of ladies. We've got some amazing girl power in the house today, and I'm really excited to introduce you all. Erin, over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome. You're tuning in for part 1 of a 3-part mini SEO webinar series. I'm Erin, the resident SEO and lead digital strategy manager at WP Engine. And today I have the honor of diving into a topic that we get a lot of questions about: specialized SEO markets, including but not limited to international, multi-language websites, and e-commerce strategies. We have 3 incredible experts in this space on the panel. If you could please go ahead and introduce yourself, your company, and your role, and tell us what markets or niches of SEO you are directly involved with or enjoy focusing on. Erica, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off.
Yes, I don't mind at all. Thank you all so much, and thank you for inviting me and having me. So I'm Erica Varanguli. I'm the head of international brand at SEMrush. SEMrush is an online marketing, an online visibility management tool. Obviously, that involves a lot of marketing as well. So it helps you build, manage, grow your presence online through, SEO toolkits, content marketing, social media, tons of apps. I should have checked the number we are on now, but we're adding constantly new apps. And my role nowadays, so I've been in this role for a year now. My role is to grow the SEMrush brand internationally. That means I work cross-channel, cross-platform to achieve that. Before, I was the director of organic search at SEMrush, which means I was obsessing for years on growing our organic visibility as well. So currently I'm focusing on different regions, different markets, and then looking at the mix of channels and which ones are performing well, which territories are growing. Previously, I was working also agency and in-house. So over the years, I've had the opportunity to work with e-commerce clients as well as other industries. But yeah, I have to say, I'm sorry, we will focus on SEO. We'll not go on and on about brand, but I love what I do now because it has opened my eyes up a lot about how SEO is impacted through various channels and not always attributable in a great way, but still you can see the final result. So longest intro ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. So happy to have you here today. Jamie, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. This is my first webinar, so I'm so honored to be spending it with Carmen and Erica and the WP Engine team. But I'm Jamie. I'm a senior SEO specialist at AMSIP Digital. We're a performance digital marketing agency based out of New York. And if anybody's familiar with Lily Ray, she is our senior director. So we're exposed to a lot of cool stuff. And I've been at AMSIV going on 2 years, which is really cool. It's my first agency role, which has been awesome. Before that, I was all in-house. And I've worked in SEO roles previously, some focus on content, but I would say coming to AMSIV is really where I've grown and like honed in on my experience. And because we're an agency, you know, our team really deals with a variety of websites, a variety of clients, and I really focused my specialty on e-commerce and all the nuances that come with it. Similar to Erica, I love brand. Like, I think, you know, my love for shopping and retail in my personal life has really helped with e-commerce in my professional life. And so we'll talk about brand a little bit later, which I'm excited about. But yeah, I'm really excited just to continue to grow and develop and learn with everybody today. So thanks again.
Love it. Thank you, Jamie. Happy to have your e-commerce expertise on the panel. All right. And then Carmen, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
So yeah, I'm Carmen. I'm the head of organic at Hallam, a integrated global agency that is based in the UK and Spain. I deal with, well, I lead the digital PR, SEO content, and I think I'm missing something, and organic social department. So quite a lot of different parts, and for international brands as well. So not just only in English. And also working very closely with brands. So this is a very interesting conversation for me, and particularly because I'm a geek of international. You can get it from my accent, probably. So just to give you a little bit of background, I actually started as a translator back in the day, translating websites. So that's how I got into SEO when I started. I then moved into agency where I worked as a digital PR specialist. And in fact, I work with Erica, who I adore, by the way. And then I moved in-house and I work for in-house companies, e-commerce companies, sorry. So I did MyProtein. I don't know if it's a well-known brand, Derm Store. So a little bit of makeup, protein, shoes. I work for Puma as well. So a lot of different brands, and then I moved back into agency because actually I like doing a little bit of everything, not just e-commerce, although it's kind of my specialism. And yeah, that's it. I focus mostly into all the technical aspects and also the content aspects in general. I'm super happy to talk about it.
Great. Happy to have you back, Carmen, for our mini webinar series. Carmen joined earlier this year in May for our first part of this that kind of prompted us to break out this 3-part webinar series that you're all tuning in for today. So glad to have you, Carmen. The topic of the webinar is specialized SEO markets. And so obviously we're going to dive in. I would like to ask the group, how do you start when you think about taking an e-commerce site global with an international SEO strategy? And I'll let you, Carmen, keep the mic and kick that off, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So it depends on, is it your website already in that in a specific country or not? Because the process that you will follow is totally different. If your e-commerce is currently just one country and is looking into expanding, the first thing that you need to do kind of is look into where should you expand, right? Because you cannot make a decision that easily. There are lots of legal reasons and things like how do you transport your product that actually will have an impact, as well as the audience. Is the audience interested in your product? Is it not? So the first thing that you need to do is identify where your biggest opportunity is. Is it maybe if you are in the UK, you already have customers in the US and you don't have a language barrier. So should you move into the US first and look into the analysis? Once you have done that, made a decision, you need to look at if it's into another language, for example, look into translating their website. That is key because there are lots of people who think like, let's do whatever, let's do Google Translate, but really you cannot use Google Translate when you are targeting keywords, right? But you need to have an expert who is doing your keyword research, just understanding the triggers of your markets. And then once you have done all of that, you need to also do the technical side, right? Because it's not like you just simply translate, you just put everything. You also need to set up Google and tell to Google, hey, now my website is in several languages. Can you please make sure that you're showing the right pages to the right audience in the right language? So what we normally call HRF Land, which is a little bit more complex than just implementing HRF Land, but we might talk about it a bit later. And I just made something very complex sound very easy, but that's it, sort of what I will do.
Love it. Erica, Jamie, anything to add there?
Tons. Am I rude,
Right ahead.
Jamie? Did I jump in ahead of you?
No, I was gonna say I actually have the least amount of international experience, but I was gonna say, you know, the market that you're getting into, yeah, it's important to actually understand the market, and you can't just use Google Translate. Different markets have their own dialect and audience, and that's so important. And it goes back to, you know, the same way you build an audience in the US, you need to build it overseas, and that comes with knowing your brand and your customers and all of that. So Erica, that's all you.
Thank you. But they're both great answers. What Carmen's response especially also made me want to talk about. I'm going to try to also make something very complex sound simple. It's like, I think when we're talking about international SEO, we're talking about the different stages where businesses are. Let's say e-commerce, but I think that applies to like most websites or businesses that want to go international. So it's part of your go-to-market strategy as well. So I would distinguish like 2 or 3 scenarios mainly. One is if you're already present, so you have a localized website. I think if we have anyone who has unique websites across different locations, I want to meet them. Typically, everyone I've met that has international sites, it's a localized version of let's say the core, the English website, or if you don't have it already. So these are very different starting points, because in the first case where you don't have it, the first step I would do is to check where my audience is coming from, and also where my sales may be coming from. And that is a good direction as to where do I need to start. Of course, like you can check a market if you haven't even gone anywhere else and you're not able to see a lot of traffic. So maybe you're a small website, but you want to launch across multiple territories, right? You can map markets. You can do that with SEMrush, but I'm not going to go into promoting SEMrush, because the idea is that you can map your market and find opportunities or where your competitors may already be. And in those cases, you need to look where your traffic is coming from, where maybe some conversions are coming from, and start there. Now, a common scenario I've encountered sometimes is that for some of those territories, the argument will be, but they speak English and they're also converting, sometimes decently as well. So should I localize? Should I spend all the money to create like all those versions of my website? And there is no straightforward answer for me there, because the answer could be yes or no, but you can start like a good approach I've found is that paid helps. So some paid tests, for example, can give you an idea on landing pages or some content, like do they convert much better if I localize them? So we can put traffic to them through paid and see if having a local version converts even higher. If you're already in places and you have your site localized, I think the attention needs to be at, okay, are they converting at a good rate? But then also, I think now, especially with all the talk about AI, and AI can do everything. Like I think in a bit, we will be able to find out, can make me my coffee as well in the morning. But it is really valuable to get people who are local, who are natives, who know marketing, who have experience in your industry to review your content. The amount of things I've seen where, the localization has been great, but then the trust signals for e-commerce, this is particularly important. And I know Jamie and Carmen will have tons of insights on this, but like your currencies, the amount of times I've seen the wrong currencies, no information about deliveries or returns, all of those things play a huge role in how people convert. And then of course, their interest in the products, maybe you should prioritize other products or categories over others. So there's other types of considerations there, and not just consider that, okay, I have a localized site, I have HRF Land set up correctly. What then? It's not just, okay, let's leave it at that and localize more and more. So that's where I would start, depending on the stage my business is at.
Actually, that is funny that Erica mentioned that. Something that I noticed when I was working in house and we were doing e-commerce, and we were going to different countries in Europe, and you will say, okay, Europe is all the same, they all behave the same. Actually not. So something that we notice is that we have done the perfect translation, we have set up everything technically all good and well, the whole user experience was perfect towards the cart, but then people were not performing, were not buying the product, and we were like, this was in Spain, I was particularly hooked into what is going on in here. And then I looked at actually all of our competitors at the time were giving free delivery, and we were charging £15, so 15 euros. And just those 15 euros basically were making everyone to go to the competitors that had similar price, but because they were offering free delivery in 3 days and we were charging for 5, people were not converting. So you need to even go beyond the basic SEO stuff and actually look at what are the barriers are making people to buy. It's no longer am I ranking, because you might be ranking, but just still sending your users to other competitors anyway. So it's proper analysis of marketing really what you need to do in this case.
Right, you might be ranking, but are you speaking the customer's language? Are you in line with what other people in that locale are putting forward? It's a really good point, Carmen. So following up on international and multi-language, we're getting a lot of questions in chat. What are some SEO challenges that multi-language e-commerce sites are faced with, and how do you address that with the sites that you manage?
Should I can go.
Let's switch it up. Jamie, you want to kick us off? Are you comfortable kicking us off with this one?
Yeah, I could kick us off for like US version, one country version.
Let's start there.
Yeah. So what I've been finding with e-commerce sites, it's not all of them, but oftentimes you're dealing with a larger technical, for lack of better words, issue that your sites come with. And you usually see this more with enterprise sites, but when you think about if you're launching your US site and if you have plans to launch in different countries, and I would let Erica and Carmen talk on like the launch process, but if you're mirroring your sites based off your home site, you want to make sure that home site is optimal. You don't want to be copying bad code or bad implementations, whatever the case may be. And so when we get a site, we first do like a deep audit into like what's going on, like what's happening. And like Carmen had mentioned, not just SEO basics are we looking at, but on-page things. We're looking at their revenue data, their transactions, their AOV, because it's not enough just to get people to your site from organic, but they have to convert too. It's an e-commerce site. They want to make money. Like that's the whole point of the site. And so we look a lot into, technical performance, all the things that come with an internal linking, all of that. We also want to make sure that their priority pages are indexed and ranking, because sometimes sites are not set up and they're like, I'm not ranking for my key term. And it's like, oh, because you technically can't. And so making sure that your, home website is optimal and it creates a good foundation. And then just making sure that for that home site, so if we're talking about a US site, right, what is the SERP environment? What are people talking about? And this is where you start getting into your audience development, brand building, right? Some e-commerce products are really big on TikTok. What do people on TikTok say about it? So it's incorporating all of those elements to say like, okay, people are coming to your site, we're checking off the SEO, basics, those checklists, but we're also making sure that when people are coming to your site, it's emphasizing your brand and your principles. So those are some of the core things that we look at. So it's a mix of technical, on-page content, all those good things that get us started.
Yeah, we find that site hierarchy is definitely an important thing to consider. Internal linking especially will help to build authority for those keywords that aren't ranking for your site. Carmen, I think you probably had something good to add here. Do you want to go ahead?
I mean, Jamie said so many things. I'm going to just pick on a few of them because otherwise we could be here days talking about them. Particularly on the technical side of websites, obviously HRF Land is super important. Everyone is aware of HRF Land, but implementing HRF Land is not super easy. So there are lots of different things that you need to consider depending on, are you using the same domain with 2 folders? Are you using subdomains? Are you using actual different domains per country? All of those will have a different impact. You need to be able to, once you implement properly HRF Land, and there is no easier or better option with the different domains or subdomains or so forth that you want to. It really depends on the country you're going to. But once you do it, you need to make sure that you stick with HRF Land properly implemented, like pointing to the different domains and making sure that your links, internal linking, so Jamie was talking about internal linking, is equally important as well when you are implementing HRF Land, because if the crawler by Google can get confused when they're traveling through different internal linking. And actually, I worked for a strategy once upon a time for HBO Latin America. We had all the language, everything in Spanish. We have implemented all the HRF Land properly, and we had a massive issue because we still didn't manage to fix it. And when looking into it, we realized that it was all the internal linking that was pointing to the different countries through the flags, and no one had actually looked into that, and that made us go nuts into trying to figure it out. So there are so many things that you actually need to consider aside the basic of how do you convert and how do you set up HRF Land. So technically, translations, HRF Land, internal linking, and all the normal things that you do for a website like navigation are really important, and you just need to consider the basics that you will do for any other website, really.
Yeah, Erica, anything to add here?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'm gonna, these are great directions. I'm not gonna repeat stuff on technical, but it is obviously hugely important, right? And internal linking, I agree, can make or break sometimes things, especially if you're transferring content from, let's say, an English version of a site, right? And you're just localizing it, and no one's looking at the link. Like, people who localize do not tend to necessarily check what are the local versions of the internal links included. So it's not just the navigation and e-commerce probably faceted. It can bloat entirely. It's also like the rest of the content on your pages. So then signals get all crazy. But particularly for international, particularly for SEO, for e-commerce, I wanted to highlight a couple of things as well. It is your chance and your opportunity to get results if you build your trust signals. Like, people do not buy as easily as they did, and it doesn't matter if they're buying like $1 something or $1,000. Obviously, the level of consideration may vary, but then there's so much offer and demand that unless you have, reviews, very clear signals about, what Carmen was saying, people were giving away free deliveries within 3 days, and users' behavior on e-commerce is also, will I have customer support if I need it? Tons of products need that. Will I be able to return it if I don't like it? So all this information is super crucial to making people convert and trust your site, and generating reviews as well if they're local. The other thing I wanted to highlight, and this is my experience because I'm very old, so I've been in this sphere much longer than I should probably, but it's like ages ago, e-commerce did not consider informational content at all. So it was all about, landing pages, site hierarchy, conversion optimization, all of it. But I've seen some huge successes through informational content, because again, this is the buyer journey, right? They don't just land on a site, don't see any trust signals, and then decide, okay, this image looks nice, I'm going to buy from them. And buyer journeys are usually much longer and much more complex. So informational content, like we recently did in one of our studies, so state of search, we found that a new feature that is coming up more and more, especially in commercial queries, is buying guides. So Google is now, so how they're showing people also ask, they show buying guides for queries, and that's like, I think at 0.3 right now. which is huge. Don't hear 0 point something and think it's a little. So working on your informational content, keeping those buyers coming back or being in front of them in search, especially in e-commerce and some regions, it may be easy to rank as well for those. So you build your brand as you build your audience. I think these are some things that you really need to take into account early on and launch or plan them as soon as possible, and not just having an afterthought about those things as well.
So much goodness there. I could pull on the strings of this topic for a long time, much longer than we have allotted for today. So I will keep us moving beyond HRF Land tags and internal linking and site hierarchy, some of the things that we've touched on. What are a few of the other unique considerations for international SEO that we have not touched on yet that might be good to bring up for the audience here?
Want me to go first? I don't mind.
Go ahead, Erica. Yeah.
I will go ahead. Okay. I'm sort of taking turns now. I'm monitoring who goes first. Okay, so I should prepare this better. But no, I think the technical aside, what we need to remember is that no matter which market you're selling in, okay, no matter which industry you're selling in, it is probably way too important that you have a brand and you have, audiences that know you, that then gradually trust you, that then, the dream is they become advocates of your brand and your products as well. But what this means is that when you're thinking of, okay, going into new territories or in e-commerce, how do I grow? In my experience, it's not just an SEO kind of conversation. It's a wider conversation of how do people know me? Where do I meet them? Like another study we did, so I'm not going to be too annoying with studies, but we did like a state of e-commerce actually, which is very relevant to this, right? And for e-commerce, for 2022 and half of 2023, pretty much all of the search traffic going to e-commerce sites is from 3 channels: direct, which is about half of it, 50%. Then it's organic search, which is around 30 to 35, and then around 15% is referral. And that shows the value of trust signals and having advocates out there and working across multiple channels. So what I would say is that when you're looking into your options, of course, take care of the basics. Like I don't think anyone wonders about that, and take care of your technical, and e-commerce can be quite challenging there. But do not think that, okay, I localize my site and I set it up on a technical level, so I should be good. I'm going to start selling straight away, because it doesn't work like that. And there's so much noise that to stand out, you need to put in a lot more work. Now, that also means being able to come across as not just localized. And what I mean by that is that, yes, everyone can localize nowadays, everything, very cheap as well, which is great. Like, if I'm not judging, you can launch with that, but then you really need to look into it. And what we found, we've done a few experiments as well with my team now at SEMrush and the international side, but also previously with organic search, and then for clients in the past, is that, okay, you may have done your test on the English side, right? And seeing that, okay, this CTA works better, this order on the page works better. It doesn't mean it will do the same in the different markets. And it doesn't mean every market will be interested in the same products. It also doesn't mean people will convert with that CTA if you just localize it perfectly. So, economical situations, the buying power of people and consumers in different markets, and how they're used. Like, for example, I'm from Greece, right? Transitioning to e-commerce took much longer. So when, for example, in the UK, people were ready to accept Klarna, for example, buy now, pay later. In Greece, it was still a problem if you were not offering people the option to pay when they receive their packages at home, with money, with actual money. So there are so many nuances in each market that you need to take it into account. I call it hyper localization. So it is, taking into account those things plus seasonalities. That is another very important thing. So Adding elements to pages that have to do with seasonal or into your campaigns, for example, is very important for an audience to perceive you as being truly local and not just wonder if you're a brand that is just somewhere far away, and if they have any issues, they don't connect with you. So this is my 2 cents on this.
Can I go, actually? Because I have a lot of points to the things that Erica said. So there are a few different points that Erica flagged that actually are quite important. And I'm going to go back to the example of the beauty brand I used to work for in-house. And we have the situation, right, that we were ranking position 1 or even page 1 most of the important products, and we saw the conversions were not happening. We realized that we needed to adapt things to target the audience, but then there was one factor that we couldn't really overcome, and the factor was that actually, as Erica said, our audience didn't know us. We were a very good, well-known brand in the UK, but no one knew us in the different markets. And while we have invested heavily in SEO, we have not invested in other channels. So when most of our competitors, and particularly thinking of Sephora, we were thinking, why is Sephora still converting much better than us? And even though we are ranking better than them, well, you need to consider Sephora has been in the industry for years, and Sephora has shops. They have physical shops. And in Europe, if people can go to the physical shop and try the products, they will. So there is lots of different things that you need to do for branding, and that means invest in other channels like, well, Erica mentioned reviews, which is 100% important also for Google. But then we needed to go into investing more in social, start putting more localized videos in TikTok with more influencers from TikTok, invest more in Pinterest, invest in all those different channels with people from those markets, not localized. Because actually, when you start looking at it from the marketing perspective, when you go to when Adidas try to do an ad in the TV, they won't be using an English ad, right? They're going to be localizing the ad as much as they can to target the audience. So you need to do exactly the same when you are on the web. It doesn't matter that the web is not tangible. You still need to target the same audience. And at the end of the day, it's basic marketing. And with all the points that Erica was mentioning about search becoming more and more complex and go to different channels, we need to think more and more about that the same way in international, right? At the end of the day, international, yes, we do translate or we localize or target the audience, but it's basically doing the work from scratch, right? You need to follow exactly the same process. You need to do your segmentation, look at your audiences, look at what triggers your audiences, what makes your audience convert, and what makes your audience stay with you. So at the end of the day, it's almost duplicating or triplicating the work, because once upon a time you could translate and it worked. That is not like how it works anymore. So there are so many things that you need to consider. It makes it really exciting, but more complex than what some people make other believe, I think.
Yeah, good points. Great points, Erica and Carmen. Jamie, I'm curious if you have anything to add from an e-commerce lens.
Absolutely. By the way, my Wi-Fi is doing its thing. So if I cut out, I am so sorry. But I think Carmen and Erica hit on really important stuff with e-com, and that's building a brand. And I have learned that so intimately with the sites that I work on. Sometimes they're like, we're down for this keyword, or they're focused on the search metrics, but we're like, well, hey, like, let's look at AOV, let's look at returning versus new users. These are all the things that are so important when building an e-commerce brand. There was a site that I worked on at my last job. I worked in-house, but we were like an agency where we had multiple sites in-house, which was cool. But we ran into a similar issue where they were a new brand. They had just rebranded, relaunched their site. And as the site started to gain traction and we were starting to rank for some of our key terms, conversion was abysmal. And some of the issues that we were facing were similar to what Carmen was saying. Competitors were offering free shipping or deep discounts. Our product was priced 20% higher than the competitors. And so you can optimize your site all you want, but if you don't understand what competitors are offering and what your customer wants, you're not going to get that sale. We also really emphasize, trust signals. We talked a lot about trust signals on the call. And that's one of the other things that we look at with our e-commerce sites is what are you doing to build trust for your customer? We have a whole checklist that we run through for our e-commerce sites, and we really hit home. Can people call you easily? Do they know who you are? Do they know who the CEO is? Like all of these things, how transparent can you be? And, in a more practical sense with e-commerce, something you hear a lot with on page is your content. I always am looking at on-page content for category and product pages. And I actually had a client ask, how should we handle our content? They had content at the top of their category page, and they were like, should we just move it to the bottom? Nobody reads it. And I was like, no, that's not the attitude we should have. We should be using this as prime real estate for people to, want to learn more about the product, for, your brand voice to come out. Just because other sites are doing it like that doesn't mean that it's right, and yeah, Google has said some content on the page is what they want to help orient it. You should be treating it like it's important for that brand experience. So, there's so many things that go into it. And, I think the big thing is don't get lost in being a channel marketer, because we're still marketers and there's still the principles that we want to uphold for the brands that we're supporting. And so I'll get off my high horse with brand and all of that. But yeah, that's a really big takeaway is look beyond SEO, look at your customer, how are they interacting and how can you be where they are? That's really important.
Yeah, it's really about striking that balance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. I think you've all answered that question really well. You made a ton of great points. I want to leave room for some of our audience questions, but there are two things I have to ask before we switch over to audience Q&A. With the panelist experts that we have here today, I always have to ask, what's your go-to source for the latest news tips and best SEO practices, particularly pertaining to international? If you could keep it focused there, please. Whoever wants to go right ahead and hop in, be my guest.
I can rip the Band-Aid off. I know you said international, and I think my answer will help. So both of my resources are from Alita, and her Learning SEO website. Oh my God, I love that website. So easy to use. There's an international section, so that counts. And then her SEO FOMO newsletter. I love it. It incorporates all kinds of topics, international, e-com, all of it. And she's wonderful. She's so smart, and any resource from her, I'm like, yes, I'll read that. So those are my two.
Her name was Alyda, Alyeda, Learning SEO website. Someone's asking in chat.
Yeah,
And I'll
SEO
share the
FOMO,
link.
that's amazing. Yeah, we'll share the links to we'll share the links in the follow-up resource article, so that will be available following the webinar.
I unmuted myself, so I'll go. Alida is great. I also follow her, but I think I realized that nowadays most of my time, like most of my information and keeping up with everything and finding new people that have also great knowledge to share is on LinkedIn. So I think I'm spending probably 95% of my time learning on LinkedIn, following new people. And then from there, obviously I follow all the people that I used to go to their website separately and all of that. So I get all of it from there because I'm lazy. The rest, probably 5%, comes from Google directly. So, their YouTube channels, their blog, the podcast, search off the record is great. So yeah, tons of information from there.
I actually follow Erica. So if you guys want to follow Erica, she has great information with the latest studies and surveys. And actually they're cool, not because I want to, be on the good side of Erica. There's quite, I agree with you, Erica. I spend most of my time in LinkedIn, to be honest. It's not only the way to follow good SEOs, but also to get to know people who are doing new tests and using AI, for example. I know everyone is talking about AI, but there are people who are actually doing cool things and testing and do more things. And then the same, I also follow most of the things from Google directly, because they are the ones who Google Search Console has I think a podcast that they do every month that gives quite a lot of information if you are into technical. And same with actually Lily Rate with It gives quite a lot of information as well. And then I think I recommended last time, but there is this newsletter. It's called Stacked Marketer. I think it's a team from Austria, I believe. I don't know, but they give tons of very good information. It's mostly about marketing in general, but because it talks about marketing, it allows you to see SEO in a bigger picture. So I think it's my favorite newsletter at the moment.
All right, love it. Great recommendations. I follow a lot of those same people. Here at WP Engine, we're pretty big fans of WordPress, and so I have to ask about plugins. Any favorites, Jamie?
So I'll preface it by saying I haven't really touched too much of a back end of a WordPress site in a minute. I hope it's not basic if I say Yoast. I mean, I've always liked it. I think it's cool, you know.
I still use Yoast every day. Yeah.
Okay, great, cool. But yeah, Carmen, Erica, what plugins do you guys like?
Yeah, Yoast SEO is the plugin that Jamie was mentioning. I'm assuming most people on the call are probably familiar. If not, you should check it out.
I actually I'm going just for the international bit, really, because there are so many good plugins. But thinking about international, I use two in particular for the different bits. So DeepEd actually is a different tool, but it has recently launched a plugin in WordPress that it allows you to translate. You use machine learning for translations, and the quality is quite good. I mean, we have all these for the last 45 minutes talk about how you also need to have users, right, that speak the language, but it allows you to make things way faster, and the quality is quite good. So for translations, that's my favorite one. And for HRF Land, I've used a few, but I think Polylang probably is the one that I enjoy the most because it implements HRF Land in general to the highest quality. Sometimes you need to make changes for Exifold, but most of the time is the best one.
DeepL for translations using AI, or Polylang for HRF Land tag implementation.
And I'll be quick. DeepL, I confirm, is amazing. We're also using it on our site, and the advancements in machine translation and everything is great. So definitely recommend there. So I used to use a lot. Nowadays, my day-to-day has become a bit crazy lately, but we'll go back to it. SEO Writing Assistant from SEMrush, because it is a great way to build your content and optimize it as you go. So it gives you suggestions. Even you've got a page you want to optimize for keywords, you want to make sure originality is there. Your brand tone is right. So it is a great place to have your content and visibility on how well you're doing with your on-page content. Nowadays, in terms of SEO extensions, I obviously I use SEO Quake and SEO Pro. This is Chrome extension by Christina Zarenka that I also like a lot, and it gives you tons of information for SEO. And nowadays, I think I spend most of my time using Loom add-on, so just sending videos to people on what's going on, next steps, what's working, what's not working. So I know it's not technically about it, but it can free up so much time if you pass feedback and you can share information faster. So I do use that a lot as well, I find.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions in chat on Rank Map. Does anyone have any context or anything to add about that tool?
I've heard of it. I know that there's kind of a debate of like Yoast versus Rank Map. I personally have not used it.
Yeah, me neither.
You ladies have used it?
No,
okay.
All-in-One SEO is another newer tool in addition to Yoast, but Rank Map I'm not familiar with. Have to get back to you all on that one. Lexi, do we have time for a couple audience Q&As? How are we doing?
Yeah, we do have time. I don't know if you want me to throw in. We've got a lot of questions, and thank you all for setting them. Feel free to continue to send them in the question and answer section or in the chat. If we don't get to them, it helps us know what you all are looking for in terms of content or follow-up, so that we can get that information to you. Do you have a question in mind, or do you want me to just throw one out there? And
go ahead, Lexi. I think the first one is really solid. Actually, the first three are great. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some questions in the audience to Carmen, Jamie, or Erica. Can you share a success story in your own, personal life on SEO, and maybe like detail a couple of challenges and how your team overcame it? Carmen, you're next to me on Zoom. I'm going to pick on you first.
Ooh, that was difficult to choose, not because I always try to have successful stories, which I do, but because I might have a favorite one that is actually international, and it was really difficult for me to figure it out. So I was working on a coffee brand that is based in Europe, and it was in lots of different markets, in the German market, in the Italian market, but I wanted to launch in the US. We have different domains, all of them with exactly the same content, and we were not able to fix it quickly because we couldn't put them all in one domain, basically because lots of things to do with the warehouse. So in the end, what we had to do is be a little bit creative with, sorry, I think my cat is in the background meowing.
All good.
He wants to answer the questions for me.
There's something to say there.
Okay. So I was saying, basically, we had to, for the first time in my career, I had to be really creative with HRF Land, and I had to play with the HRF Land to different domains, which it was not clear if you could do it. Okay, sorry about the cat. I don't know what's going on. So we had to reach out to Google to see if they would recommend to put HRF Land into the different domains. They did recommend it and explain how to best do it. We did change the content and translated the content into the different Germans, so Austria, Germany, and Switzerland, and localized the English for the UK and the US in different ways. And the impact was really quick. In a matter of 2 weeks, we had the right URLs ranking in the right places, and we had also the right products coming to the right websites. So it was very easy for us to send them to the right warehouses, which actually was a big issue. I don't know if I explained it because a cat made me lose the track of sight, but yeah, that was kind of
I think that is super helpful. And also there's lots of love for your cat in the chat. So Erin just said SEO tips with cats coming to you soon. Jamie, do you have anything to add there? Do you have kind of a success story through your career and what you do?
Yeah, so I would say that this success story is still in progress, but it's a kind of like an internal client win. So we recently started working with an enterprise SEO client, and every client has their own nuances to them and what we focus on. But with this client in particular, we were auditing their site, we noticed there was a really big opportunity for faceted search. And right now on the site, it's, there's a lot of opportunity for us to come in. And so we've spent a lot of time, presenting our case to them and, recommending implementation and really working with them to help. They ended up building it, but based on our recommendation, to build a system to help implement changes. And the project just started rolling out, but for us to have identified, really stated the case and really showed to them, like, this is a huge opportunity. We show them that there's these, high volume terms. They sell the products, they just don't have the pages, whether it's because the pages are indexed or the pages doesn't exist. And so while I don't have, hard concrete for me to have gotten this client on board to the point where the CMO is like, yes, this is the only thing you guys are focusing on right now because we think this is such a priority, that to us is a huge win. And being agency side with our clients, When they're happy, we're happy. So I hope that counts as my win. I'm really
Yeah.
proud of it. Our team's really proud. So yeah.
Totally a win. And everyone is different. Every client is different. Every org on this call is different. And Erin and I have been talking about this a lot as we head into a whole series, but there's no like fit mold to SEO. And I think, all of the questions in here totally mimic that as well. I'm going to switch up the question and just ask Erica a question because I think this is a great question. And Carmen, you're welcome to chime in, but do you care about other search engines while you're doing international SEO? Or can you talk about, how you focus outside of Google and things like that?
Yes. I don't know if it's unfortunately or I think it's fortunately, because then we're talking about a monopoly everywhere, which is scary. It depends on the region. So what you do is, depending on the market and the region you're interested in, you pull up the data in terms of like, okay, which are the most popular search engines, which ones have most users on them. Very often this will be Google, but then depending on market share as well, I think sometimes people just look at the figures. So they say, okay, Yahoo has, I don't know, 5%, or Bing, I don't care. But that actually can be tons of traffic, and maybe the competition there is also much lower. So definitely worth considering. And then for other markets, China elsewhere, you have to consider the other search engines as well. What I want to add to this is, you need to think of search engines beyond search engines. So it's hard to hear, but the search engine, depending on what your e-commerce store is about, let's say if we're talking about e-commerce store, right? Probably the primary search engine will be Amazon, or maybe a local kind of seller like Amazon, where you need to be on, because people go directly to search there, right? If you're let's say in the travel industry, maybe you need to look into Skyscanner more and what you're doing there. TikTok has exploded across multiple industries, including e-commerce. For e-commerce, I think now in our study we found it's among the top 5 most popular channels as well from social media, but it's actually also used as a search engine. So then if you look beyond just the traditional search engines, I think you can uncover tons of opportunities. And I've seen it with clients where, their website was, I'm sure Jamie would cry, and Carmen, for nights and nights. The investment there could not be huge. There was no brand. And then actually looking into things like Amazon or Etsy or somewhere else, they could start building at least that kind of revenue stream to then build further on the right path. So yeah, of course, it's worth considering other search engines.
I have, on top of what Erica was saying, I have lots of big love for, and this is super random as well, like for Naver in Korea, because it is a search engine that is very, very different, and I think Google is wants to copy it. This is me thinking that. But if you look at Naver, you can check that everything Naver related is on the top. So you have all the images belonging to Naver, all the blog posts belonging to Naver, everything, all sort of content belongs to Naver. So basically Naver is making the user stay in Naver and engage with Naver to get the content, very barely going to other pages and other channels, and other filters, for example. And I think Google actually in their dream would like for every user to always stay within Google and not going.
I was gonna say Google mimicking Naver.
I always thought that was the case. Obviously, Google has a better taste in what things look like, or from the Western standards.
It's cultural, Carmen.
Exactly. Western standards. That's why I say, like, it's a little bit more elegant, but I still think that it is copying, and it is very useful even if you don't have to go to the Korean market to play around with it and see how it works, because it's just mind-blowing. So for example, when you have to go to Japan, you look into Yahoo Japan, Baidu if you are in China, Naver when you are in Korea. They are very good to learn how to do SEO in a different way. We are so obsessed with Google, but if you look at how all the cultures do buy and how they interact with the internet, we can learn quite a lot. And just finally touching upon TikTok, Erika was saying TikTok, I've seen massive explosion in Pinterest. So many people, including myself, when I have to make a decision into what to buy for my house, I go to Pinterest, because I go to Google and like, there's an SEO trying to trick me. I'm gonna go to Pinterest and I'm going to see what the users are actually saying or what they're posting. So obviously, if I'm thinking SEOs are trying to trick me, I'm pretty sure that the users do that too. So just to say, beyond SEO needs to focus just beyond Google and just beyond the search filter. We need to look into images, Google Images, Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, everything. And that is, Jamie said something very interesting earlier about having to work with all the different parts of an e-commerce to make things successful. And I think this is the summary of the webinar, or the summary of what the discussions that we are having here. SEO is no longer one guy, and I say guy, working in the background, doing keyword research, putting canonicals, and that's it. It's becoming so much complex, empathetic, intuitive, that for me, it's super exciting and interesting, but people need to get used to thinking in other, I think, levels to just doing keyword research.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a really positive note to close us out on. Lexi, I will kick it back over to you to wrap us up.
Oops, sorry. I did the one thing I told everyone not to do, which was talk on mute. I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. And if you can throw some love in the chat for these panelists, this was amazing and so beneficial. And thank you to everyone that submitted questions. Please come back either tomorrow or Thursday. I'm going to take all the questions that you've asked and try and incorporate them as much into the rest of the webinars, as well as we will have some resources coming to you. Again, you can register at events.wpengine.com/June webinar, or on our resources page on the home page, there is a link to the registration, which will update that same page. So thank you to everyone. Happy rest of your Tuesday. Good night, good morning, and see y'all later.